I am filming this so incredibly early, but girls gotta do what a girl's gotta do. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we are going to be doing my July TBR. Alright, before we get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what books are you reading for July. So first off, wow, cannot believe July is here. That's insane. Actually, when you're watching this, I am going to be on vacation, which is definitely going to be affecting my TBR plans a little bit. Not to mention, I really think that this month is the month where everything should be handled, everything should be officially finished, and I may be moving into my new house. Really hope that's true. So between both of those, I'm definitely going to be relying on audiobooks this month, but shockingly, even though I am going on vacation, I'm going to be hanging out with my two best friends who are also very bookish people, meaning I'll probably get a fair amount read while I'm on vacation. However, before we start into all of my audiobook plans, let's start with the usual and talk about my TBR jar picks. So if you're new here, I have two TBR jars. One is for books on my physical TBR and one is for my digital TBR. Let's start with the physical. I actually only really have like maybe two books that would work out really well if they fit a prompt, but ooh, hello. Next book in a series, not gonna complain about this. The only thing is I don't think I own many books that are the next in a series. Limited options. Let's see what we get. Excluding choosing a manga, I basically only really have this, and it sort of feels like cheating to go with a manga, so I'm gonna say 9 Liars by Maureen Johnson. I actually was meant to read this in May, but that didn't happen. This is the next book in the Truly Devious series. Technically, by this point, each of the books can kind of be read as standalones. In this one, Stevie is visiting her boyfriend David in London, and of course ends up getting wrapped up into some sort of a mystery, and I believe she actually ends up working with Scotland Yard, I think? But that's all I really know, and I've adored these characters thus far, which is why I'm excited to continue reading. I really like the standalone mystery in the previous book, The Box in the Woods, so I'm excited to see what Johnson has planned for this one. Also, it's a little bit chunkier than the previous books, which, while I'm not the biggest fan of chunky books, that does have me excited that the mystery might be all the more enthralling. Plus, I mean, it continues the series, and I'm not going to complain about that. So, physical book, down. Next, for my digital TBR, let's see what we're gonna get. A 5x5 pick. Okay, so this means a book that is related to a 5x5 project I currently have in the works. I have like 3 actively going, so this actually works very well for me. After doing a quick look through, I think I'm gonna go with Little Eve by Catriona Ward, mostly because I had recently tried to read this and it just, unfortunately, it just wasn't really working. I was reading it via audio, which was cool. I had no problem with the audiobook, except for the fact that the narrator had a Scottish accent, which I didn't realize was very quiet, meaning it was really hard for me to understand anything she was saying while I was driving, which is probably the prime time I read my audiobooks. However, like I was saying, if I'm moving this month, that'll be perfect because I'm not going to be driving, but I'm definitely going to be listening to audiobooks while I'm doing different things around the house. Hopefully, this will be a good pick. I think this story is following like this pseudo family. Like they're kind of a cult, I guess, and they believe that something is going to be taking over the earth. I don't know, some sort of a extreme situation. Things end up taking a very deadly turn, and then I believe there's like an investigation around that cult family thing. I don't know, I didn't get that far into the audiobook, but that's about what I believe is taking place. It's Catriona Ward, so I'm assuming on one hand I'm going to be a little confused, which I already am, but on the other hand, I'm probably going to enjoy this, and if the twists in this are anything like what she did in Last House on Needless Street, it's going to be a good time. Okay, so that is it for our TBR jars. I am actually planning to partake in Summerween, which is a readathon hosted by Gabby Reads and Olivia Reads a Latte, I believe. All information for that is linked in the description down below. This is my first time partaking, but I'm very excited because I've really been wanting to pick up more mysteries, thrillers, horrors lately, and I feel like, unfortunately, as a genre, all 3 of those are sort of being ignored in favor of romance and fantasy. At least they are if you're looking at my genre breakdown on my stats. So this seemed like a perfect excuse to read some books that fall into those. With that, there are many prompts, and I'm not gonna pick a book for every single prompt because this only lasts like a week, and that I need to admit that's just way too ambitious and never gonna happen, but I do have plans for a few. First is to read a book in the dark, and that's more of an activity, not really a prompt, but so hopefully I can double count that with one of the other prompts. Then next up we have to read a thriller, and for this one I think I'm gonna go with The Last Housewife by Ashley Poston. I've heard a million positive things about this from Michelle and Lexi, so I've been really wanting to pick it up. This one is following a woman who I believe escaped a cult. That's ironic, I didn't plan that, I promise. But she escaped a cult and now she's living her life. She's listening to some sort of true crime podcast, and the host tells a story about this girl that I think she went to college with and disappeared, died under mysterious circumstances, something along those lines. And she ends up contacting the host of the podcast to try and get involved to officially solve this. I'm very intrigued. I've heard this is really feminist. I've heard it's surprisingly dark, and then like I said, it has a cult twist. I'm pretty excited to get into this one. I think it's gonna be a wild ride. After that is to read a book set in fall, and honestly I didn't do too much digging to see if any of these books will work for this, but hopefully one of my books will double count. The next prompt is to read a book with either black or orange on the cover, and for this one I'm gonna go with Sisters of the Lost Tribe by Nick Medina. I actually requested an arc of this on NetGalley, unfortunately got turned down. The tagline, which was talking about a indigenous woman who is investigating the disappearances of other women from her tribe, and eventually she actually ends up being haunted, and her investigation ends up connecting to a lot of indigenous folklore for her tribe, which right there, that alone just sounds fascinating. Plus, I love that this is taking a very serious topic that unfortunately goes under-recognized quite often, the murder and disappearances of indigenous women. So I'm really interested to see how the author handles that with this folklore twist. The folklore twist automatically got me. If you've spent any time on my channel, I'm sure that's not particularly surprising. Really excited to pick this up. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, but thankfully I know my library has it, so I'm gonna get my hands on it. And then finally is to read a manga, a graphic novel, or a novella. And for that one, I feel like it's so easy for me to go with Soul Eater. Currently, I am on volume 3 by 𝗖cie RH𝘁ฆ์. I've talked about the series a few times now, but this is set in a world where the Shinigami Lord Death actually has people who are either weapons or meisters, and they attend the school where the weapons are trained to eventually become death scythes. Right there, if that doesn't scream Halloween vibes, I don't know what does. Like I've said many times now, this is my favorite anime. I finally dived into the manga and I'm enjoying it. I really want to continue my read. This is the perfect excuse for that. Finally, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, I am going to be on vacation for the first little bit of July, and with that, on one hand, I'm going to be going to see Taylor Swift, which I'm so excited for, but on the other hand, I'm hanging out with my friends Allie and Kat. I've had them in a few videos previously, so I'll put a link to one of those up above. Multiple times now when we have had girls trips, we end up spending any free time sitting around reading. So I'm hoping between that and then travel time, I will get a few books read. However, seeing as how I'm sure we're gonna go book shopping at some point, I am gonna try and focus mainly on library books and also books that I've been needing to get read for a few months now, basically for video ideas, I'll be honest. First up, I am considering trying to continue Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I originally picked this up for the Story Continued book club last month, but unfortunately I ended up not right nowing it. It wasn't really working with me at the time. This book gets so much love, it gets so much praise. I want to try to love it. I'm hoping maybe whenever I come back to it, it'll go a little bit better. That is a King Arthur retelling in which we are following this young black girl who ends up becoming a part of the secret society that I think are like the Round Table Continued or something, and they fight demons to protect the real world. I'm fairly certain it's something along those lines. Next is one I think I've only heard maybe one or two people ever review this book, but that is Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody. This is a standalone YA fantasy in which we are following this woman who works at a circus as an illusionist. She actually creates full-blown illusion until one day one of her illusions is actually killed. So she ends up trying to investigate, find the person responsible for this, and figure out how the heck they did that. I've been wanting to pick this up for years, ever since I saw the cover and heard a very base synopsis, and it sounded very intriguing as well as pretty different, so here's hoping I'll finally get to that one. Then I'm really hoping I can finally start into the Bone Witch series by Rin Chupeco. I've heard so many good things about this series, and the cover is absolutely stunning. I believe this is focused on necromancy magic, in which our main character accidentally ends up bringing her brother back to life, but this causes her to be shunned by the rest of her family, and the two end up going on the run or something along those lines, but I know eventually they find a teacher for our necromancer and she is determined to become a elemental witch, I think. Again, I've heard a lot of positive things about this series and I love seeing necromancy in fantasy stories. Really excited to get to this one. All right, y'all, so that is it for today. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!